That is a lot of tuna. What are you gonna do with all this meat? This stuff stays great in the refrigerator for about 5 days. So you could have tuna steaks every day, all day for 5 days, and you're still never gonna get through all this. So what do you do with it? Please, for the love of everything that swims in the sea, don't freeze it. You might as well take it outside and light it on fire. That's about as good as that meat's gonna be once it comes out of that freezer all freezer burnt. Don't give it to your neighbors because they're gonna throw it in the freezer and they're gonna ruin the meat. I got a great technique for you to preserve all this meat and preserve it for years possibly, and you don't have to rush to eat it all, and it's still gonna taste delicious. All right, Fish-a-Lot, so I got the solution for you on what to do with 700,000 pounds of tuna. You can't possibly give it all away to neighbors, and if you do, they're gonna freeze it and ruin it on you. So the answer is jars. That's right, we're gonna jar this tuna, and it's gonna be delicious. This is gonna be your final product. Basically, you're gonna buy a mason jar. You're gonna layer it with seasoning, which I'm gonna show you, capers, all sorts of good, delicious stuff. And then we're gonna put it in a pressure cooker and seal it. And this thing will be good for years, pretty much. I mean, I've never lasted years at eating it, but you know, 6 months, 8 months, this stuff is still good. So if I have 900 pounds of this stuff and I jar it all, I can eat till my heart's content. I could take my time. It's gonna be delicious, and I don't put any fish to waste. So no fish in any of my videos die in vain, Fish-a-Lots. All right, let me show you the ingredients, and let me show you my preference on how I like to jar this delicious tuna. All right, first things first when jarring your tuna, okay? You got a couple of different options. You got some fairly big jars here, you got little jars here, and of course I got even bigger jars. Now, I will tell you this, the advantage of a big jar is of course it could hold a lot more tuna. However, I will say the little jars are ideal because once you open this, I got this, buddy, yeah, thank you, thanks for helping. Yeah, there's Ben trying to grab all my tuna. So I will say the advantage of these smaller jars is once you open this and you break the seal, it's no longer airtight. And so you have about, oh, I don't know, maybe 3 days to consume all the tuna. So if you choose to have a really big jar, something like this, it's fine. It's just, you know, you just have to be cognizant of the fact that the tuna is no longer going to be good forever once you break the seal, and you have about 3 or 4 days to consume the fish before it goes bad. And if you're anything like my household, where I'm the only one that's going to be eating this all day, every day, then something like this may or may not be ideal. So first step here is extra virgin olive oil. All you're going to do is you're just going to layer the bottom of the mason jar with the oil, just like that. Not too much oil, you just want to coat it. Okay, this is going to be your first step. Then you're going to lay the tuna in there. Okay, I want to worry about exactly how it sits in there. Don't worry about it. You just want to layer it just like that so that the bottom is nice and covered with tuna. So I'm gonna add one more piece in there. And a good rule of thumb here is basically if you can't see the bottom of the mason jar, that's a good layer of tuna. And the ingredients you need for this, again, I like more of an Italian style to my jarring, but there's all sorts of recipes out there. But if you wanna stick with the Italian style, you just get some black peppercorn pepper grinder. I like Perfect Pinch Italian seasoning. This is parsley, oregano, pepper, salt, all sorts of goodness in there. Of course, you're gonna need some parsley flakes, extra parsley flakes, and capers. Capers is a really important part of this. It gives it a lot of nice flavor. And then, of course, probably the most important thing to this is salt. Okay, salt is what actually is gonna preserve this once it gets airtight. So you absolutely need to have some salt. All right, so now that we got the initial layer of tuna on there, next up is the capers. So what we do is we just grab a little bit of capers here. You want to do too much, keep in mind about 2 spoonfuls is good. Keep in mind you're going to layer this layer after layer, and so if you add too much, it could potentially overpower your tuna, and nobody wants that. So that's about what you want right there. Now all you're going to do is you get some pepper in there. We're going to use our Italian seasoning. There we go, and that's a layer. So now that's a layer of tuna. You're just going to repeat this process over and over again until the jar is full. And again, you want the layers as even as possible when you're making this. And there you go, now we're gonna repeat the process. So once again, we're gonna use our capers. 2 spoonfuls will be good. There you go, our pepper. This time we're gonna go with some parsley. There you go, and we're gonna do another layer. All right, now here's an important note here. Now this is my final layer. So notice I'm just about the first ring here of the seal. I wanna add some room in there. I don't wanna layer it all the way to the surface because when this gets pressurized, when this starts to cook, I need some extra room in there for the oil and the liquids to kind of boil up in order to seal this. If you overflow it, it'll leak around the sides here, and then you may not get a good seal. If you don't get a good seal and it's not airtight, of course your tuna is not preserved and you're gonna have to eat it right away, which defeats the whole purpose of long-term storage of your tuna. So just keep that in mind. So I'm gonna layer it to about there. That's very important, this first ring. And now I'll show you exactly what to do. So I'll finish this off with my capers. If I can find my spoon. Where'd my spoon go? It's in the capers. Oh my goodness, I'm losing my mind. All right, I'm just gonna finish this off with some capers. All right, now this is the final step. This is equally as important as not overflowing the tuna, okay? And that is your salt. So your salt comes at the very end. What I do is I pour it in my hand because I don't want to use too much. And you just want to coat the top layer with salt. Just an even coat. You don't want to put too much in there, but you definitely want a good coating of salt because again, this is what preserves the meat. So if it looks something like that, you did it right. So it's not like you can't see the salt, but it's also not pure white, totally covered in salt. So that's it, that's about right, that's perfect. We're gonna seal this up, and this is our first jar done of tuna, and it's ready to be cooked. I'm gonna do this 6 more times because my pressure cooker holds 6 of these. So let's get going with that. And this is great parenting 101. If you're busy doing something crazy like this and you got knives laying out and tuna and gunk and blood, you just give the kid some YouTube and he's satisfied. He's watching some trains and some dancing lizards and I don't know what, but he seems content. Right, Ben? Ben, you good? Yeah, he's good. And all right, Fish-A-Lots, one last important note here before this goes into the pressure cooker is the outside rim right here. You don't want any liquid or tuna anywhere on the outside of this rim. If you do find liquid or blood or anything like that, take a paper towel, wipe this all down, make sure this is dry, because what you want is you want the proper seal between this lid right here and the jar, because that is what's going to give you that preservation. And another thing is before you put them in, make sure that lid is popping, okay? Just like that, because when this comes out, like this does, you shouldn't hear any popping. So that's how you know it's sealed, is if this slams tight and there's no air in there to pop it. See, right now there's air in there. We're gonna get rid of all that once we put it in the pressure cooker. And all right, Fish-A-Lots, so here's our Instapot, and let's see how we did. Oh boy, that's looking pretty good right there. All right, that is it. So that is a perfectly cooked jarred tuna right there. You can tell all the layers of all the seasonings we made. You can see the oil in there. And most important is you want to check the top and make sure that this doesn't pop. If this starts popping, right, these are mason jars. That means that it's not airtight. It's not a big deal, it's still gonna be cooked. You just need to eat it right away. Whereas an air seal, as good as this one, this is good for months and even years, which is perfect so that you don't have to rush through eating all your delicious tuna. And there you have it. That is a stack of perfectly cooked jarred tuna, ready to go right into the pantry. So learning how to fillet and prepare and ultimately preserve these fish is a lot of fun. But what's more fun is actually learning how to catch these fish and catch a lot of them to maximize your enjoyment and your time out there on the water. So if you want to learn the tips to catch these awesome fish and experience the thrill that is tuna fishing, be sure to click on these end cards right here where I show you everything you need to know to load the boat and enjoy yourself while you're offshore tuna fishing. All right, Fish-A-Lots, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you out there on the water.